Right? All the good things. Just gonna get ready for to go on Facebook over here.
So you're coming tomorrow?
No, my trip was canceled. My trip was canceled. We decided to do the right thing and err on the side of precaution and stay in Jersey. Stay here with my friends.
Because you're Abba or just...
Abba, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just, it's a smart thing to do. I don't know. We became smart. We became doing the right thing.
Good modeling, good behavior.
Yes. Who said that? Alan?
Brad.
Oh,
I'm being supportive.
Good. Thank you.
I
need all the support I can get.
What are you gonna do, Shuki?
Shuki's here? Shuki.
I'm here, yes.
Shuki, where are you?
You're quiet. You're quiet today.
You're too quiet. Shuki, everything okay?
Yeah, thank God I just joined in. I will explain my daughter. I just talked to my daughter about what we learned about, the 3 first and 4 mothers,
Yes.
Weight and everything. So I get something from you, Rabbi, I learn something. I remember some stuff. Alan Avi, how are you, Avi? Good to see everybody.
שתהיה בריא.
תהיה בריא גם אתה. I make enough noise at the beginning of the week for the whole week. So now I'm quiet a little.
No, I want you to make noise every day.
God
Shuki,
bless you all.
You need every day. We need to hear your voice. All right.
God bless you all.
We need everybody's input every day. Everybody said, all right, let's get started. Baruch Hashem. Today's class, I believe we're holding for Sasha Bas Avram. Today's class is dedicated in memory of Sasha Bas Avram. Thank you, Mitchell Burko, for dedicating another class and making these classes possible. We really appreciate it. We are going to bring up today's Chumash. We're holding the fascinating story of how the
prayer for...
We did it.
Oh, I missed it again? Sorry.
You could say the name now.
Sorry.
What is it?
Tova Chana Baschaya
Tova Chana Baschaya Gittel. Have her for Shlema. No problem. All right, my friends. Let us learn. We're holding the middle of the story about the foundation of the 12 tribes, of how the 12 tribes came to be. And yesterday, whoever joined us will have noticed that Jacob married 2 wives. He was duped into marrying Leah. But Leah, God made, should have all the beginning children. Leah, meanwhile, has 4 kids. And Rachel, who the original wife who Jacob was supposed to marry, has no kids so far. It's a very sad situation. So she gives her maidservant to Yaakov to have 2 kids. And then Leah does the same, gives her maidservant to Yaakov to have 2 kids. And now there's a total of 8 children. And they all know that there's going to be 8 tribes. But Rachel is suffering tremendously, right? As you can imagine, Rachel's having a very hard time because she's not having kids and her sister is having one after another. So listen what happens in today's Chumash. Vayelech Ruvain b'meik tzir chitim. Ruvain went in the days of the wheat harvest. It was the times of the harvest. Vayimtza dudaim. So remember, Ruvain is the eldest son of Leah, right? Leah is the wife that Yaakov ended up marrying first. For those that were with us yesterday. But the wife who he wasn't supposed to marry ends up having all the kids, and Rachel, who he was supposed to marry, is not having any children. So Reuven, the oldest of Leah, who he got married to first, she had a couple of children, 4 children we learned. And her oldest son Reuven goes in the wheat harvest time, goes in the fields, and he finds some kind of a plant. So the question obviously is, what is this plant, this dudaim? Rashi tells us here that this plant that he's bringing home is very specific, trying to tell us that it wasn't the wheat harvest, but he didn't bring home wheat or barley, even though that was the harvest time, because that would be stealing. He would be stealing from other people's fields. So he went in the time. What's the message, or the hidden message here telling us when it was the time for ripening and cropping of the season of the barley and the wheat, but he brought home dudaim, whatever that is because he did, to show you that Yaakov had a very good influence on his children. He taught them not to steal. It's a beautiful message. This is a good father. He's really influencing his kids. And the fathers of the 12 tribes will go on to be people that will only get like wild plants that don't belong to anyone, that no one's trying to hold on to it. And they went and found something wild to bring flowers home to his mother. I just want to share with you, although it's not in Rashi, Rashi says it's a kind of an herb, but the commentaries say that actually his mother stopped having kids. She became not able to have children. So there was some kind of a remedy in those days. This kind of an herb was something that could actually help you have children, which is going to help the rest of our story make sense, actually, what happens over here. So what happens, continuing verse 14, so he brings home whatever, these dudaim flowers, and he brings it home to his mom, Ima, his mother, Rachel. So the childless sister sees what's going on. So she tells her sister Leah, give me some of the flowers that your child brought home to you. Can I also have them? And Leah kind of tells her something very sharp back. Look in verse 15. So Leah tells her sister Rachel, it's enough you stole the heart of my husband. You've taken my husband. You also want to take my child's flowers that my kid is bringing home, these dudai flowers that my kids bring home, you also want to take from me? So what does Rachel respond? So Rachel says, so therefore, I'm going to basically pay you, and I'm going to give me your flowers, maybe also because they have a remedy for being able to have children, which would make sense in a way why she wants it, is that instead, our husband Yaakov will sleep with you tonight instead of me. As Rashi says, that I guess when you're married to more than one wife, as would happen in those days, when a husband's married to more than one wife, there was a system, which night, which tent, which house he would go to. So that night was supposed to be for Rachel, and Rachel said, instead, you can have Yaakov tonight, you give me the flowers of your son. The Rashi says this was a big mistake, because she who gives her the right to put down being with her husband, who's such a holy, righteous tzaddik, to allow, how could she do something like that, give something like that up? And Rashi says something very interesting. All punishments that a person gets is equal to the crime. And I guess at that level, when you're married to somebody so holy and to do something like that it's a serious offense. I guess we can understand it, but obviously on that level, maybe they could. That's why when it came time to get buried, she wasn't buried with him. It's an interesting outcome. So she put down her husband, whatever, in the way the Rashi understands it. So the punishment was that we know that Rachel was the only wife of the Jewish fathers and the forefathers and mothers, who was the only one not buried with her husband. And Rashi brings a medrash who says this is an outcome of the story that we just read about in this verse, that she's giving up the night with her husband for flowers. Verse 16. And Yaakov's coming in from the field, Be'erev at night, right? He was working, he was in the field, whatever he was doing. Leah, the Karasai, and Leah goes out to meet her husband. And she tells her husband, Elai Tava, you're coming to me tonight. Because I have hired you. I've rented, I paid for it. With the dudai flowers of my son. And he was intimate with her that night. And Hashem made a major miracle that after Leah could not have kids, Hashem made that intimacy that wasn't supposed to happen to come forth with the next of the 12 tribes, with Leah's 5th child, and overall 9 out of 12 of the 12 tribes. As it says in verse 17, so God heard Leah's voice, and she gives birth to a 5th son. She's bringing out a 5th of the 12 major tribes of the Jewish people. She brings forth the 5th son. And Rashi says, why did she merit it? Because Hashem saw how driven she was to have a child with her husband. So badly she wanted this child with her husband, and she wanted to set up, be the family which created the tribes of the future destiny of the Jewish people. Hashem saw that, and Hashem said, okay, I'm going to give you, I see how driven you are to mother the tribes of the Jewish people, and in that merit, I'm going to give you another child. So, Leah became pregnant from that time. And Leah said, when this child was born, God gave me my reward. Because if you remember, she had given her maidservant to have a child with her husband, and she would raise those children as her own. And she called them, from there came the 9th tribe, which is called Yisachar, from the word, my reward, right? So we see again the word Yisachar is very involved over here. This is where you got the name from. She received Hashem gave her reward for giving her maidservant to her husband, and now all of a sudden God's allowing her to have children again. And she goes and now has her 6th child. She's going to have half of the tribes. Leah becomes pregnant another time. And now she gives birth to a 6th son. So now she's already 50% of all the tribes of the Jewish people are going to come straight from her. So Leah says, verse 20, God has given me a good portion. Now my husband kind of will set his home, will be with me. I gave him 6 children, 6 sons, and she called him from that name, from the wording called a good portion, and he'll live with me, he'll be with me, because I gave him, she called him Zevulun. And that's where the 10th of the 12 tribes come from. Rashi explains this name Zevulun is like a dwelling place. So the husband will live with me. Basically, she gave him 6 sons. Another wife gave him, maidservant gave him 2. Another maidservant gave him 2. She's already the main wife in the house. She's the main one. Half of his children, from what they're predicting, will be with me. But then something interesting happens. Ba'achar Yolda Bas, and she has a daughter. Tikra Shema Dina, and she calls this daughter Dina. And Rashi tells us a background to the story of the birth of this girl being born. Okay? What's the story? What's the background story? I don't see any faces, by the way. Where's my whole, where's everybody over here? So he says, maybe they're eating lunch. Or don't be getting tickets, Ira, while we're learning. Okay. He calls the girl Dina. So the rabbi say, Pirush Rabbi Seinu. What happened here with Dina? Oh, Evan, I get to see you now. Good. Very good. Now we can continue. Pirush Rabbi Seinu. The rabbi say, Shadana Leah Din Ba'atzmo. Leah made a judgment call on herself. She says, this is a big problem. If I have a 7th child, child number 11, it's going to put my sister Rachel in a very, very bad place, because I'll have 7 of the tribes and the other 2 maidservants will have 2. That means that it's only possible for her sister Rachel to have 1. So she actually prayed to Hashem that this baby that was in her uterus should turn out to be a girl and not a boy. So, and then she named the child Dina because she made a judgment call on herself. She made a judgment. She said, God, I really feel bad at this point for my sister. I'm very happy with my six boys that I have. But if I have a 7th, who knows what's going to be with my sister? She won't even be equal to the maidservants of Yaakov. And finally here, verse 22, God finally remembered Rachel, right? Jacob has now 10 children. Rachel personally had none. God remembered Rachel. Rashi says, what did God remember her for? What kindness did she do that God gave her for? And Rashi says, if you remember, how did Yaakov end up marrying Leah even? So if you remember, we learned that Yaakov didn't trust his father-in-law Laban, because Laban was a con artist. And he was scared that Laban will bring the wrong girl to the wedding. And he won't know. So he gave, if you remember, we spoke about this, he gave a coded sign, a secret code to his fiancée, to Rachel, saying that, a secret code to Rachel, saying that, that you do this code under the chuppah, under the wedding canopy, and I'll know it's you. And Rachel saw that morning that her sister Leah was being prepared for the wedding by her father, and she realized how embarrassed her sister's going to be when she comes to the wedding, and the whole town we learned was there, right? And it's going to be the wrong girl. The middle of the wedding, the whole town we learned was there. She'll be so embarrassed. So she gave up that secret code to Leah and put herself in a really bad position, right? That her sister will marry. She might never even be able to marry the guy she was in love with for 7 years, waiting to marry him. Put herself in a bad position. So God says, remember that amazing deed, just so Leah shouldn't be embarrassed. She gave up, literally hurt herself to protect her sister. So God says, I'm going to give you a child now, a merit of that great deed. I'm going to give you a child. Rashi also tells something else very interesting, which was a little scary for Rachel at that time. If Rachel wasn't able to have kids, Yaakov is having kids, no problem. The other wives are all having kids. It means there might be an issue between Rachel and Yaakov being able to carry children. And Esav was starting to get ideas in his head. Esav said, look, I'm sorry, this wife's not working out for you. I want her to be my wife. Divorce her, and I'm going to marry her. And she got very afraid. That's all she needed was to end up with Esav after everything going on. So again, God heard her prayers. She was in a very difficult position, and God gave her a child. Verse 23. So finally, Rebecca becomes pregnant, and she has a child. What does she name him? She says, Osaf Elikim es Karpasi. God has gathered in, kind of taken away, brought in my embarrassment, my reproach, the shame that I've had. Hashem brought it in, so I shouldn't be so embarrassed anymore. Right? And everyone was saying that I'm going to end up by Esav. And Rashi also has a very cute, it's a cute medrash that he brings here. He says, what does it mean God has taken away my embarrassment? So he says, whenever there's a kid in the house, you blame the child. The house is dirty. You say, no, my 2-year-old, he made a big mess. But what does someone who doesn't have a 2-year-old at home do, right? You don't have a 2-year-old at home, your house is a big mess. Who are you going to blame it on? You look like a slob, and that's it. You can't blame it on anybody else, or somebody broke something. When you have a kid, you have any excuse in the book. I didn't wake up for work that day. Oh, my kid last night, he kept me up all night. I couldn't sleep. I'm sorry, you have no little kids at home, so you have no one to blame, right? Who broke it? Who ate the cookies in the cookie jar, or so on? Who ate the figs? So Rashi says, there's a good thing about taking the embarrassment. When you have a kid, you have a good excuse. I tried it a few times myself. It hasn't worked for me. I don't know why, but they say that it works. Okay. Atikra Shema Yosef. And they called the son, I know for Shachris in the morning. I try to blame it on my kids, but it doesn't really work out for me. Atikra Shema Yosef. They called the child Yosef, Lamar. And why did he call him Yosef? An interesting name she gave her child. Can you imagine giving your kid this name? Because Yosef Hashem li bein acher. Let God give me another son. So his name was, give me another child. That was the kid's name. Now Rashi says that from here we see something interesting. We see again and again that the wives knew that there was going to be exactly 12 children, which is why Rachel knew since she had child number 11, she could only ask for one more son, which was going to set up the 12 leadership families of the Jewish people. So he says, God, make that 12th child, please, the last child be from me. And Vayika Shayolda Rachel Yosef, and it happens to be before the 12th child is born, and she's going to have, just to give you, those who don't know, she's going to have the 12th child. She's going to call him Benjamin. But we're going to go off on a tangent now on a different story, what takes place. When Rachel finally had her first child, her only child so far, called Yosef, Yom Yaakov, so Yaakov, the husband, goes to his father-in-law, Lavan, and he tells his father-in-law, time for me to go home. Time for me to go home. So the commentaries ask, all of a sudden here, at your 11th kid, you're finally ready to move home. What happened? Where were you until now? Why are you all of a sudden ready to go home to your parents? Took you 11 kids to get it. What happened? Something must have happened with the birth of Yosef. So Rashi says he got a tremendous confidence. Once his wife Rachel has this child Yosef, something was with the birth of the child that gave him the confidence that he could go back home. And why did he need confidence? Because we all know that Esav wanted to kill him. So why is it that all of a sudden Yosef's birth gives him the confidence not to be scared of Esav? So Rashi brings here an interesting idea from the Targum Yonasan from the Medrash, and he says that Esav is considered like straw. Esav's like straw. I remember in yeshiva, there was a yeshiva in Israel. When I was in Israel, they showed me that Americans are like straw. Why? What was this point? I don't know if it's true or not, but this is whatever the text said. Because straw makes it, if you ever light a fire in your backyard, right? You put in like straw, it makes a big fire quickly, but it burns out very, very quickly. I don't know if this is, I'm not backing up the statement, but I'm just sharing it with you. So sometimes in life, you could have a log of wood. You make a fire, not a huge fire, but it could last 4, 5, 6 hours. You make a fire of straw. You have a huge fire. You ever use twigs or leaves or whatever, huge fire, and 3 seconds later, it's out. So Esav is like straw. That's at least what Rashi is saying. And Yosef is considered, Jacob is considered like a big fire. Yosef is that little tiny spark, that flame that lights the fire. So all Yaakov needed was the energy of Yosef, that little tiny spark, to light his fire. And even though Esav is this huge amount of straw and wheat or so on, but once you have a fire, you can easily burn it. So anyway, that's why he was, the energy of Yosef, for some reason, was this little tiny spark of fire, this little child he had that gave him the confidence that he can now overcome the very scary Esav where he was heading. So verse 26, he says, so he goes to his father-in-law, he says, his father-in-law, Lavan, I want to leave, it's time for me to go. So now it's Noshai, give me my wives, that's Yiladi, my children. Remember, he said he's going to work for 14 years. He said, I worked for 14 years. I should have that I worked for them. Because you know I fulfilled my work on the highest levels. And I'm not going only with your permission. I could maybe run away. I'm not looking to run away. I want to leave here on good terms with you. And I want you to agree that I can go, that I can leave. So what I want you to do is let me go. Time for me to go. And Vayomer Lavan, Imna Matzasi Chen Beinach, and Lavan says back to Yaakov, yes, I acknowledge what you're saying. And he says, I believe he was a diviner. He was like a guy who dealt with some kind of magic or so. And he says, I see in my divination that I became very blessed from you. How was he blessed? Some of the way the commentaries explain it, he had tremendous amount of sheep. His business did amazing. Maybe because Yaakov was the shepherd of them and his business grew tremendous fold. He was a very good manager to the estate of Lavan, especially to his sheep. Others say that he had no sons. How do we know he didn't have sons? Because if you remember when Yaakov first arrived, you saw the girl Rachel shepherding the sheep. It seemed like she was the only shepherdess in the family. He had no boys. And now after Yaakov came, all of a sudden, I guess he started having sons, and that is the blessing that he had. So he has enough support in the business, I guess, from the sons and so on, which he didn't have before. And that is why Lavan's agreeing to Yaakov, yes, you worked for me many years, and I agree, with all the things you've done. However, as we'll see in the next Chumash, he was a real con artist, and he tricks him, and every time the guy makes a deal, as he's been doing, he's been keep on tricking him back. And we see Yaakov also didn't take it laying down. He's going to fight back. We'll learn about that in the future Chumash, about how he's going to, when you want to break a business deal, you want to move on, it's sometimes sticky. We'll see how they separate it after that point in time. Any questions or comments? What a beautiful class we have today. Any questions or comments to follow up on our Chumash today? Anybody have any questions or comments? David Strumeyer, welcome back. We missed you. And now he's shut his screen off.
I have a question.
Yes, Lisa. Sorry, David, you're unmuted now.
Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
All right. Yes, Leah, Lisa, go ahead.
I was just wondering, the maids, were they raised, or did they kind of keep the same status as servants kind of after all this?
It's a good question. I'm going to answer off the bat. I don't have a full answer for you. I believe one of the key differences is in the way of marriage, because I believe I saw this. Remember, it's not the first time this is happening. We know Abraham married also Hagar. So I actually saw an interesting conversation on it. A key difference was to the method of marriage. So when you marry a wife, there's a ksuba, I believe it said. There is a promise from the husband to guarantee certain guarantees that the wife gets. An allowance to Century 21 and Wegmans, whatever the different kind of allowances that come with it. No, I'm just making that up. But yes,
the important stuff.
The important stuff that you get a certain allowance. You get a minimum to these different stores. And there's certain things that come with a wife marriage. To the maidservant marriage, it was more given by their father to them as a support to them. They weren't even supposed to have children with Yaakov originally. It had nothing to do with Yaakov. It wasn't a marriage at all. The question is, when he did have children with them, how much of a marriage was taking place? So I saw this discussion by Abraham and Sarah in the commentaries, if he ever gave her that ksuba woman status or not when they had children. There was debate. Torah doesn't say it, tell us clearly. I'm not sure, but it's very interesting what you're saying. We will see later on there will be politics among the children of Yosef, and the children from Leah's children, the 6 children from Leah, will look down at their brothers that were born from the maidservants, because they felt that they were a higher tier. They were a lower quality tier. And that's a little bit what brought about some of the politics between Yosef, because Yosef was standing up for them. And
So it wasn't even clear then.
no,
I
but I'm
guess.
saying the brothers did look down at,
Yeah.
that there was stuff going on there, that they didn't look at them at the same level, based on Leah's children, and Yosef was sticking up for them, and that's kind of what led to some of the politics in between the brothers. It's interesting. So on your point, I'm saying that you see that some of the brothers felt that it was like a lower class kind of a child. The fact is, it's the 12 tribes, and obviously, I don't know, to answer the question, if there was a full marriage done at the time when they married him or not. I know there was an interesting conversation in the commentaries by Avram and Hagar, how far that marriage took place.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
some insight. Good, great question. Excellent. Thank you, Lisa. Anybody else? Any questions or comments on today's Chumash? Yes, Mitchell.
I'm just curious if there's any significance to the fact that when you name the I don't know if you call them four mothers, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, is there any significance to the order? Because Leah is last. I'm just wondering if there's any significance to that.
You mean like who is in first, second, third, and fourth? In as much as the Jewish people, I'm sure there is. I'll tell you something interesting about raising the children. It's very interesting that Abraham was a very holy man, yet one of his children was a problem. And Isaac was a very holy man, and yet one of his children was a problem. Yaakov, who was a holy man, who married all these wives and lived and raised the kids in a very unhealthy place. Remember, he's the only one who's raising his children not in Israel. He's raising his kids out of Israel in a very bad place, Haran, which we keep on talking about how it's a challenging place. And his father was there with the bad influences as a con artist. And the kids all come out, okay. With all the politics between the mothers and the brothers, it's an interesting thing. I'm sure the dynamics of the mother play a role, you know what I mean, in the children of who, what, when. But it seems like Hashem's mission that these parents should raise those children, and the outcome that will be. I haven't heard the mothers as much. I hear more about the fathers playing that role in the outcome of the children. So Avram is known as kindness in Kabbalah, once you want to get deeper. Yitzchak is known as severity. He was the kind of father like full discipline. Like Avram was the giving father who would give the kids everything. I mean, whatever that means. Isaac was the kind of parent that would very disciplined with the kids. So he took the opposite turn. And Yaakov had like a middle, we call it Tiferes in Kabbalah, and so on, had like kind of the middle of approach that was a good balance. It was compassion, not extreme in either way, but like a good healthy dose of both ways. We see the fathers play this great role, and it's very specific about who's where. I'm sure the mothers do too, but I don't know offhand. I don't know, so I'm saying like each parent was unique to their children. I'll tell you something interesting I heard the other day in our Monday class. I know always people say you don't get to choose your children, but you could also say the same way you don't get to choose your parents. So just as it's specific who God decided should be your kids, God decided who should be your parents too. You know what I mean? Like that God wanted you to be raised by those parents that will influence your life. Whatever, just a thought. I'm sure there is, but I don't know offhand. I do know about the forefathers a little bit about the significance of where they are and who they have to father and raise and how come the kids were the outcome. But I'll just say one or two interesting things. The mothers are the ones naming their children about their personal, it's not the father. Like a lot of times when a couple gets married, there's a big fight between the husband and wife. Whose name should the kid be? I'll share with you a little joke. It was a couple came to the rabbi fighting once. And the father said he wants to name the kid after his father. And the mother said, no, he wants to name the kid after her father. Big fight. So the rabbi asks the father, he says, what was your father's name? He says, my father's name was Moshe. So then he asks the wife, what was your father's name? She says, my father's name was also Moshe. So the rabbi says, so what are you fighting about? So the wife says, my husband's father, he was a crook, he was a ganav, he was a thief. I don't want to name the kid after his father. I want to name him after my father. My father was a nice guy. So the husband says, yeah, but he's still my father, and it's the same name that they're fighting over. So the rabbi says, listen, what you should do. Name the kid Moshe, and when he grows up, we'll know who he was named after. We'll see which father he was named after at the point in time. But anyway, it's the mothers here that are giving names. It's very interesting. The mothers are giving their name. And also I find it very interesting. You know, today we have a custom to always name a kid after a great man who lived. The mothers are not naming after like anybody earlier, you know, Noah or Adam. They're actually inventing their own names, like tailored to the energy of the child. And so it's fascinating ideas in seeing how it's the mothers who are part of their education, not just that, naming obviously who the kid's name, what the kid's name is. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm sure there's more significance to it, but at least share with you some of the ideas that I know offhand. Yeah, I just want to say that it's 12:39. So those who made the half-hour commitment, thank you so much for joining us. Those who want to stay on for Tanya today, we'll continue with Tanya. Unless anyone has any more questions on the Chumash. Any more questions on the Chumash? No? We good? Okay. We'll move on to today's Tanya. So in today's Tanya, he wants to go back to an old example that we gave in Tanya a while ago. Very interesting example. A beautiful example. The analogy is that when you plant a seed in the ground, let's say an apple seed in the ground, the apple seed ends up turning into a huge apple tree with a tremendous amount of apples. How many apples are? I don't know, maybe one growth of an apple tree can grow 1,000 apples. I'm not sure what the numbers are. And then for years in a row, it could grow thousands and thousands of apples. So that seed turns into thousands of apples. But the way in Tanya, he takes this apart and he says like this: the seed doesn't have in it, that little tiny seed doesn't have the energy to grow all this huge apple tree with all the apples coming out of it. It doesn't have the energy to do that. So how do all these this huge apple tree with all the apples come out? Where does the energy come from? So they want to argue that it's in the earth. The earth has the nutrients and the able to sustain and give energy to this tree. Really, it's coming from the nutrients in the earth. So why do you need the apple seed? Why do you need the apple seed? So the apple seed tickles the ground and gives the ground its DNA and motivates the ground to produce its kind of energy, its kind of DNA, it's whatever you want to call it. It's not the one producing all these apples, these thousands of apples that are going to grow. It's not the seed. The seed doesn't have the potential. The seed is very little. It's tiny. It's just a little seed. It's the outcome of one apple, but it has the DNA of the apple. I don't know if DNA is the right word, but that's the word I'm using. So it has the DNA of the apple. It gives a message to the ground. It motivates it. It tickles it. It wakens it up and arouses the energy in the ground for it to grow and grow a beautiful tree. I'm thinking in life, this is very true. Like, let's say many of us here, we don't have the energy. I'll take myself. There's very limited I could accomplish on my own, right? There's a drop I could accomplish. But if I reach out to you, let's say one person knows how to write very nice notes, another person knows how to speak, a person could help support all the financially the things we're doing. You know, you motivate the other people who have more strength than you do, and together you're able to build this huge team and to have tremendous success. So maybe like the president, how much could the president do on his own? But if he gets the right people around him, he can be able to be tremendously successful, very smart and talented people. He's able to accomplish much more than he could accomplish on his own. So the apple seed is very little, it's very limited, it's only able to do very little. But when the apple seed motivates, inspires the ground to use its tremendous energy that God put in it in the 6 days of creation to produce unbelievable amounts. Can you imagine how many years will this tree grow? I was in Israel, in Yerushalayim. I saw an olive tree there, and they said it was 1,000 years old, an olive tree. So imagine they took one seed from an olive. I don't know exactly how it works. And that olive tree for 1,000 years is producing thousands and thousands of delicious olives from that one seed. So it's not the seed that has that potential. The seed just awoken, inspired, motivated the ground in order to give what it's giving. And the Tanya, why am I saying this whole example? It's a very good example in life for a lot of things we do. But the reason I'm bringing this example is to talk about the power of a mitzvah. When you do a mitzvah, you're not just doing a mitzvah. Okay, I'm here, I'm putting on tefillin, I'm making a blessing, whatever. I'm not just doing a mitzvah. When you do a mitzvah, you are that seed that's just inspiring a tremendous light that's way beyond yourself, that's way beyond you. it's touching a very high level. What is that level? Let's use the Kabbalistic terminology here that we're talking about, as we've been talking about all week. There's the world of Tohu and the world of Tikkun. Tohu is that tremendous energy world that exploded, right? There was a nuclear reactor explosion because the energy was too high, you didn't have enough discipline to control it, and those sparks fell all over the world. And we are not that level energy, we're a lower level energy, but because we're calm, we're lower level energy, we're able to find those sparks and tame it and bring it up to where it needs to go, okay? Because we're a lower level energy, we're able to find those sparks and tame it and inspire it and bring it up to a level to where those sparks need to go. And we're able to reach that energy that exploded, that was too high. We're able to tickle. We're basically, by doing the mitzvah, we're tickling that, we're motivating and inspiring that level of energy that's greater than us. The world in Kabbalah, it's called Tohu, that tremendous energy that was too strong for itself. We're motivating that, and that energy comes down into this world. So don't think you're the one, you're the one bringing the energy. No, you're just a little tiny seed. But your tiny little seed motivates that level, that high energetic level that's too high, even that exploded. You're able to reach and bring that down by planting the seed, which is in our case, by doing that little mitzvah, you're touching a very high level. Another term in Kabbalah is called Ak, Adam Kadmon, which means this is using Kabbalistic terminology now, the first man. It's the first glimmer of infinite, like knowing about finite. It's called Adam Kadmon, the first highest level where it goes from infinite. That level, which is an Adam Kadmon, is the level of explosion because the energy was too hard. So imagine like God is starting to create the world, but there's just too much energy in the recipe and it explodes. And that came into our world. Now we lower level energy people could get in touch with that energy, inspire it, and bring down now through us that energy inside this world. Let's see it in Tanya. I hope this is making sense to you. I'll know after. If anyone has a question or comment, I'll know that it made sense. So hopefully that is the case, that we can study this together. Let's go through Tanya now. It's not long. Today's shorter than other days. Again, for those that weren't here before, we're finishing the Tanya, big party on Sunday. In a week from Sunday is Yutas Kislev. I'm bringing a special speaker to come speak, and maybe we'll talk about that after. Sunday night at 7. On Sukkot, you come to the holiday and you want a mitzvah, so you go and get the esrog, right? You go to the Chabad website and you put in $54, I think it is, or $75 for the deluxe, and you order the esrog. That esrog has some of the 288 sparks that came from the explosion of the world of Tohu that exploded, that came into our world. And that esrog, which comes from now, because the spark came down and it's not a holy energy anymore. It's hidden inside the natural kind of nature energy in the world, which has good and bad, because you could use the esrog to hurt someone or so on. You could do it. It's not good energy. It's not bad. It's kind of nothing. It could go either way. So what you do is you buy that esrog and then you go to shul and you make a bracha on it. And what are you doing now? You're taking that energy that has in it from the sparks, the 288 sparks in the world that exploded from the world of Tohu, and you're finding it and you're elevating it. And the same thing is tefillin. So too, when you put on tefillin, that tefillin was part of a cow. Cow could be biting people, or the parchment could be used for anything, good or bad. So now you took that parchment and you made it into tefillin. You made it something holy. You revealed the sparks that are inside it. So what happens when you do that? You are motivating a tremendous light into the highest of the 4 worlds of creation, which is called Atzilus. So you use your lower level of energy, which is called Ma, which is the name in Kabbalah for the lower level energy, to bring godliness into the highest world. Because also, remember, you're not just affecting our physical world. You are like the seed, which is going to give an example now, that it just tickles and wakes up and inspires a much higher energy, and therefore the effect is much greater than yourself. It's not just the esrog that you're doing the mitzvah with, but you just change the whole world. Hinei hamashal lezahi Hazriya v'anatiya. The example from this is like planting and sowing. The example that I've been giving. And when you plant the seed is really just tickling and motivating, inspiring the ground, so the ground should start to grow. And it wakes up that energy that God put into the earth that has tremendous energy to grow all the plants that we see, major trees and so on. The earth has tremendous energy. So how does it do it? By inspiring it, by waking it up, by tickling it, by elevating in the Kabbalah. The term is Mayim Nukvin, by reaching up, going back to its source. So when you do a mitzvah, you bring some kind of energy back to its source, right? You're doing the mitzvah, you awaken this huge energy above, which is that world of explosion, the world of Tayu, which is a tremendous energy beyond our world. What happens is that energy that you bring down comes from that world that exploded before creation. It's such a high energy. You now bring it down in a tame manner to be in our world and wake up, find that spark, wake up and bring down a tremendous light into our world. That's the essential light in the first being of creation, the highest level in the created world, which is called Adam Kadmon, which is Ak, Adam Kadmon, the first man, which we also said is Sag. Different Kabbalistic names we're explaining. As the classes have gone on, we've been explaining again, this is very, very, very deep Tanya, the hardest chapter of Tanya in the whole book, but at least we'll understand somewhat of it. Not like other energies. Like when you learn Torah, like let's say when you're learning other ideas, not about mitzvahs, that you only bring down a lower Kabbalistic level, lower energy level of called Ma, which comes from the forehead. What does that mean? The forehead of the Adam Kadmon of that level, but the forehead means it's kind of external. But when you do a mitzvah, you're getting in touch with the essence of the highest level of the beginning of the energy that came to create the world. That's where you're getting in touch with when you do a mitzvah. And now he's going to say it's not just when you do the physical mitzvah, even when you learn about the mitzvah. When you learn the Jewish law. We have Sunday morning, Chabad's class on Jewish law. Saturday night, we have also a thing on Jewish law for kids and their parents. When you learn Jewish law, you're also getting in touch with that same energy because it's about the law, it's about the mitzvah. But it's getting in touch with the intellect because you're learning the law of it. The intellect of the mitzvah, which is the 10 energies of the vessels of the highest world of Atzilus. And gets in touch so high with Gamkein Bechinas Chabad Shabasag, the intellectual level of the term of Kabbalah called Sag, which is that world of explosion, as I keep on talking about. The Pnimius Adam Kadmon, which is the essence of the Ak, of the first man, of the first glimmer of creation, which come through the eyes. Meaning, what does it mean it comes through the eyes Kabbalistically? That it's very internal. So this all happens when you're studying or you're doing any physical mitzvah, which is a positive mitzvah. But I would think that what about half the mitzvahs, or more than half, which are the prohibitions, the 365, that all makes sense, how you're the seed that's waking up a tremendous energy in the positive mitzvahs, the 248 positive mitzvahs of the 613. But what about 365 of the prohibitions? I would think that it shouldn't work because you're not planting a seed. What are you doing by not doing a sin? What are you really doing? You're not doing anything. Especially the prohibitions, which are super uncommon. There's a lot of prohibitions which you'll never even think about it in your life. You never even get close to it in your life. How does that energy, how does that energy work? I get how the 248 energies of our seeds, each mitzvah is like a seed, and every time you plant it, here you're planting an apple seed, here you're planting a lemon, and here you're planting an estrog, you're planting this or that, whatever. I get it if you're planting by doing one of the 248 mitzvahs, but what happens with the 365 prohibitions that we don't do? How is that considered planting? And that will already be in tomorrow's Tanya. I hope it was somewhat clear. These are the hardest topics in Tanya. Anybody with me still? Anybody, any questions or comments, or anybody know what's going on? David, it makes sense to you, David?
I'm half lost.
I don't know if I should feel good or bad about that. At least you know half of it, or that. Let me try to make it. Let me just try to let me try to bring it down, just very simple, because I want us to walk away with something. I want to bring it down. I think maybe, I think maybe, let me just bring it down. I'll bring it down to myself. So I only have so much energy in my day. There's only so much I could do. I could accomplish very little, right? I have a certain amount of hours in the day. It's taken up between my family, Baruch Hashem, and everything else. How much time do I have? Let's say to teach this class even. I only have that much I could teach because I only have that much hours in the day that Hashem leaves me to do it. But if I inspire, hopefully share the Torah with some of you, and you go on to share it with other people, it'll a tremendous amount what could be done. So a mitzvah is only the lever that you're pulling to bring an unbelievable, infinitely greater energy than yourself. That could be done. And by the way, I'll tell you the same thing with children. Like when you have kids, when you have children, there's only so much. You're very limited in what you could do. But guess what? If you get your kids on the right way and the right path, they can do 10 times what you could do. So in life, you have to look at the investment, the little tiny, what's the greatest investment? Probably the greatest investment you can do is in your children, because if they continue your path, I'll take my father, for example, or my grandfather. If you see the Chabad rabbis and the continuity from what he created, it's unbelievable, but he was a very limited person. There's only so much he could do. So he's trying to tell you, don't think the mitzvah you do when you put on tefillin, don't think that that's just that mitzvah. You have no idea what is the outcome of that mitzvah. Even that physical mitzvah that you're doing in other worlds and in other places taking place, you're literally changing the world. I heard one, I'll leave you with one good example. I learned once, I think it's a very good analogy. Recycling, it's funny. So who's into recycling over here? Like who's like, there's certain people that are like crazy about recycling. God forbid if they're in your house, in someone else's house, and they see the plastic bottle being thrown out, they feel like you're destroying the world. If they're kind, they won't say anything to you. But some people will say, how could you just, they'll give you a look and they'll say, you're destroying the world. or no, I'm just kidding. But you feel like those who are into recycling, you feel like by you throwing out the plastic bottle in the garbage, you're doing something wrong, right? You feel like you're doing, but I'm like that too. I feel wrong about it. But when you put the plastic bottle in the garbage can, right, and you recycle it, when you recycle it correctly, you feel like you're doing a mitzvah. You feel like you're saving the world. You're doing something good. Between me and you, do you really think that your little plastic bottle is going to make a difference to the world or not? So if everyone said that, obviously it would be a problem. My point is that you feel like they have the picture of the world revolving. And the truth is you are saving the world, because if everyone does their part, then you really are helping the world, right? I'm just going back and forth to explain the analogy here. So the mitzvah is the same way. When you do that mitzvah, you're having an unbelievable impact on the whole world around you. It's not just your little mitzvah that you're doing. So you're doing this. No, it's like the recycling example. When you do that mitzvah, you're literally saving the world and you're changing the world. And you're bringing it, because your mitzvah is only the seed that's going to awaken a much greater energy than yourself. That is the example that we want to give in today's class. Does that make sense? I think that that makes sense to everybody. You're doing a mitzvah, you're changing the world, because the mitzvah is not the end. The mitzvah is just the beginning. It's the beginning of what you're inspiring and what is yet to come. And that's why, my friends, according to today's Tanya, mitzvahs are the most important thing. Big deal with learning Torah, learning all the topics. So mitzvah is like plants. You have whole trees that are planted because of the little mitzvah that you did. And that is the message, I believe, in short, in today's Tanya. Yes. David Strumeyer, more than half understood or fully now? Oh, you just
Much better, much better.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Good.
I think it's interesting. We know exactly what punishments are for negative commandments, but for the positive commandments, it's not obviously specifically written out. And I think that kind of like plays alongside this, right? Because there's like an infinite amount of good that can come from it.
That's interesting. You're saying, I would say also people in life I saw something very interesting. Some people in life are raised to focus on the consequences. Like it could be your parents in your house always said, if you touch that fire, You know, like they always point out to their children the consequences, but never point out the positive outcome of what people are doing. In this parenting course I'm taking, it actually said that. It was a very good point. It's like they said, when you talk to your kids, you know, when your kid does something wrong, you get in his face and when it's something very bad, and you tell him, do you know what you did? And you have like tremendous energy and you're focused and you're detailed and you're like, you almost killed your brother just now, and like, you know, whatever. But do you have the same energy when they do something good? You know, you get in the kid's face, do you know what you just did? You just helped your brother out. You know, it's never the same energy. So people are raised to always think in the negative, and that's why some people, that's their natural, you know, place where they go, and they're always talking about negative, and they're very into that. So today's time, you're right, it's telling you the opposite. If you only knew, you get in the person's face and you say, do you know what you just did? That same level of energy when you're like talking about the negative, like, you know what you did? You just did a mitzvah that's changing the world, and you're going to help so many. Like the same impact as you almost just killed your brother, God forbid, you know, like you just saved somebody else. That's amazing. And I guess that's the point of Tanya. That's a positive twist, which we have here in Chassidus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point, Leah. Thank you. Alan, yes.
People management skills will teach you the same thing. You always look for somebody doing something good instead of looking for somebody doing something wrong.
Right. I really learned that in Tanya, by the way. I really learned that in Tanya. So like you'd rather, it's better to thank, like if you're a boss, and a lot of people do this, the bosses always look for the mistake their employee makes. And then they're constantly, it's a very difficult situation because they feel they need to point it out. But if they would just say thank you and point out the good, that's a way better way to send the message to that person and the other employees around them that what they're doing is right. You understand? There's certain, like, because then you're always on eggshells. If you're the parent that always telling your kids negative, all the kids thinking, okay, what's the next message going to come out of my parents, right? So correct. So and it's a way better way to live, and it's much more successful to point out the good. Or when someone does something good, say thank you again. And the parenting class that we're saying, a lot of us were not raised with that thank you kind of mentality. So naturally, we're looking for the bad in our kids too, because we were raised in that way, the negative way. That's just the way it was, and we're continuing to do that. We actually have a hard time saying, I don't know if you're like that too, but you have a hard time saying thank you sometimes. You're uncomfortable with it. It's not a way you were raised, and therefore, yeah, the point in time to show you the power of the goodness of your actions is the best way to teach someone and to help them learn. Yeah. Thank you, Alan. Great point, Alan. Excellent. Yeah. All right. Yes, David. You're muted, David.
The theory of the glass half full or the glass half empty is pretty much what you're talking about right here, because so many people are raised in that household where it's almost as if they're expecting something negative to happen. So the relation to what you're saying is well taken, and it's a much better understanding now based on what you said. So I thank you for it.
Now we have clarity, right? No, I mean together, you know what? I think it's a joint effort as we're trying to understand these ideas in practicality. Thank you, David, for that. It was great. You're right. I feel like together we come up with a better understanding of what it is that where we're going. This is very practical advice to really look at another person and say, what can I find good in you? I'll give you one more example. Someone told me this years ago, and it really hit home. There are a garbage man has a very specific job. His job is to look for garbage, right? That's his job. He goes down the street and he tries to find garbage by every house that he sees. So he looks at my house, do I have garbage? Does this guy have garbage? Because some people in life, they're like garbage men. They go everywhere they go, they look for garbage in other people, right? They see a guy and they're looking for garbage. What's wrong with this guy? What's wrong with that guy? They try to find garbage in other people. He said that we really have to be the opposite. We have to be people that walk around looking for goodness in other people, and we'll change the world. Imagine someone who does that. It's a very positive, healthy person, and you'll bring such positivity to the world. So yes, so we should not, some people focus their Judaism on God's going to strike me with lightning. You know, if I do what's wrong, not a healthy way. That's not the kind of Judaism you want to live. You want to think about the goodness of doing something right instead of focusing on doing something negative. That is a much healthier way to be a Jew. Yes. Any other questions or comments? If not, yes, Ira.
This is a totally side different topic. Well,
Good.
said it,
No
but
problem.
just have a question. You said, so basically from what I understand is that the soil contains the ability to grow everything.
That's what it says in today's time. You said it very clearly. It says that Hashem, I'll show you the text here if you want.
And the seed just,
Yeah, let me show you the words.
Like
He
soil-
quotes from the 6 days of creation. I'll show you inside. It says, look here. 1 second, I gotta go up a little bit. Here. The analogy, I read the English. The analogy for this is in the process of sowing and planting. The seed stimulates the power of growth in the soil. And he quotes here the verse from creation, which is God's commandment, let the earth sprout forth fruit trees. And look at it, he explains. The actual growth is not from the seed, but from the power of the growth. The seed merely serves as an arousal from below, stimulating the particular aspects of the power of growth that finds expression within it. After the seed decomposes, this particular power becomes incorporated within the universal power of growth that is found in the earth. That stimulates the power of growth within the earth to produce the same sort of fruit tree as the seed was. So according to the Torah, according to Chassidus, the way it's explaining is that the energy is in the ground. It's not, the seed is just a stimulant for the earth.
okay, I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing this. So the problem I have with that is now they have all these hybrid fruits or hybrid apples or hybrid things where they genetically make them. So now you have a genetically made plant.
It's a genetically made stimulus.
But that stimulus, but I'm saying, so they take that seed and plant that seed to grow this new version of vegetable or fruit. So
Okay.
you're saying back in the day of creation, God knew everything that was going to be made, every variation?
Oh, it's a good, I'll give you a good analogy for it. It's good, a great question, Ira, but I think the answer is pretty straightforward. Great, excellent question. The way I look at it is, it's like energy, like electricity. Anything you plug in that the electricity could power, it will power. Does that mean you knew, did the guy who invented electricity know every kind of machine that the electricity will power? No. The ground is like the pure energy. And then the seed is like plugging in the kind of tool, you want to use a power tool, a refrigerator, a washing machine, whatever it is, that is going to, because the energy is pure, it's nothing, it's pure energy. And then the stimulus, the way you channel that energy is how the energy will go.
Yeah, but one's inanimate and one's, a living thing. And then you get the seeds from the apple tree the hybrid apple tree grows a apple of seeds, and you could take those seeds and plant it again. I mean,
First of all, maybe that's why it's
I know what you're
prohibited.
saying,
Wait a
but
second, it's prohibited. You're not allowed to do it.
right, but they do it and it works.
Okay. So first of all, I believe a non-Jew is just off the bat. I don't know if I want to make anything up here, but I think a non-Jew is allowed to do it. A Jew is not allowed to do it. But just because let's say it's even, Hashem allows stuff to be done even if it's not allowed to be done. Remember, we learned by the flood of Noach that if someone commits adultery,
Free
the
will.
child's still created,
Right.
even though it's not allowed, but the energy is still there. But I think that it does make a lot of sense. I think the electricity is not limited. It could be anything. Anything you'll plug into it that is able to get in touch with the energy, it will power it. So I could plug in, it could be now someone's going to invent something in 5 years from now that uses electricity, it'll use it. It'll use the energy of the electric. Just because you don't know about it now, it doesn't mean it can't work. Because the electricity is very pure. It's just pure energy.
Right. I understand what you're saying about the initial growing of the seed, but my problem is once that fruit is on the tree, take that fruit that was grown, right? Now you take the seeds from that fruit and you just do it again. You could grow the same thing over again.
Because it's just a stimulus. It's to stimulate the energy of the earth. What's funny, what's interesting is you always need to come back to the earth for it to grow. It has to get the nutrients and the energy from the earth.
That's not, well, now I'm not going to go there, but they have the hydro where they just grow it in water. There's things where they could just grow in water now too.
I don't know. So you know what? I think
these farms where
that's how they grow marijuana in some of the big plants.
No, they're growing fruits and vegetables and water. Just water, and they add nutrients to it.
Not that you would know anything about that, Rabbi, right?
I'm very familiar.
They do. They have it.
I know someone who owns a company in Oregon that does that stuff.
Right.
It's very popular in Portland, Oregon. What do you say?
It's the first time I heard about the earth having the full. I know you need earth, but basically the seed is just the stimulus and the earth grows. I just have to grasp that. That's a little bit hard for me to.
No, I mean, listen.
The
it's a new
seed is
idea.
right, Rabbi. The seed is the instructions. The DNA are their instruction manual. What happens is the earth has a lot of nutrients, but the carbon and what actually grows is from the air and all that. So even if you're growing it hydroponically, even if you're growing it in just whatever, you're still pulling from the air. You're still pulling from the earth. You're still pulling from what's around us. It's just, I think what you're getting at, Rabbi, is that it's just not all within the seed. It's not like it just doesn't all come out of the seed. It takes from the environment, it takes from around us, it takes from the earth.
Well, it's the earth. It's saying the
tree.
earth has. I mean, it says in the Torah, Hashem put the power of growth in the earth.
Right. He's saying the earth is what's growing. The seed just tells it what to grow, and the earth grows it.
Right.
It doesn't.
But you're saying when they grow high, you telling me when they grow hydro, whatever the name is for that thing, you're telling me they don't use any soil in that growth?
Correct.
They use other things. They use some soil. They use some rocks. They use some minerals.
But
right,
it's
they
not
use other things that come of the earth. It's just, just because you have a flower pot doesn't mean it's not of the earth. It's still got soil. You could hang it up and, it's not directly touching the earth, but it still has earth in it. The hydroponics, it's a lot of, chemicals and little rocks and stuff, because it has to grow in something. It's not just, in water. It's in something, but it's just not in soil exactly.
Right, and you cannot grow everything hydroponically. The trees you cannot grow on there, and they do put nutrients from the earth. So, in essence, you're substituting the nutrition of the earth with vitamin supplements for people. It's the same equivalent.
Oh, that's a good example. It's like taking vitamins. Beautiful. That's a good example, yeah. So imagine you need to have a certain amount of nutrients and vitamins. You could either eat apples and whatever, or you could actually take no, isn't there something called balance? I keep on hearing on the radio. What's that one? It's called, they keep on saying, I don't know, keeps you balanced. Balance of nature. Yes, very good. So that would be an answer. You're going to get it, Ira. The balance of nature.
Leave it to Terry.
All right. The balance of nature the vitamins have found another way to get you the nutrients from the earth. So I guess I don't really know much about it, but it seems like Brad and Ayal and Leah, thank you very much for helping out over here. So you can't get away from the earth. You know what I mean? Like I'll bring an example, like having a baby. Like we know how to do all this, people could take a Petri dish but the bottom line is you need the sperm and you need the egg. You know what I mean? Like you're not really making something from nothing. You're taking everything God created that has the power in it, and you figured out how to manipulate it no one figured out themselves how to do it. They still need to come back to God's original energy, the sperm and the egg, in order to create a human being. You know what I mean?
Like with in vitro.
In vitro, right?
Like
exactly.
It's scientific, but they're still using obviously the same material, like the same instructions are being put into place, just like the minerals are in the water for the hydroponic growth. And yeah.
Right. So they still need to come back to
life begets life. There's nothing that goes from inanimate to animate. Nothing that goes from dead to alive. It's all, you have to have something alive in order to create something else that's alive.
Right. Wow, this is getting way beyond my level of understanding over here. Alan, I saw you posted an article.
Hey, this is all about you, Rabbi. You taught us.
You know what? I'm telling you, I don't understand the Tanya. So you guys are understanding it better than me because you know the science better than I do. So that's great. I'm happy. I learned a lot today. All right. Thank you so much. My wife is calling me for the second time, so I better go get the phone. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Mitzvah Shem, it's really enjoyed learning with everybody. Have a great day and look forward to working with you tomorrow.
Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.